Alright, hi Matthew again, hi Stu. Jumping out of a combination of whether it's bhuja pidasana, kurmasana or tittibhasana. A little similar to jumping back. If you don't have enough strength, shoulders and core to get enough lift to pick the hips up, this is challenging. So from, let's say bhuja pidasana, let's say we've managed to get into it, therefore get out of it. Step one would be just, can I hold here without touching the floor and just get one leg back? Right? It might end up touching the floor, but if possible it stays off. Then the other leg. The fear factor here is being able to drop down as you go back at the same time. So rather than doing head first or feet first, it's both at the same time and simply drop. And that dropping action requires initially plenty of strength but a lot of trust. Once you get used to that, initially some students touch the floor and end up belly flopping, but that's not so bad either, as long as you're not putting too much pressure on the wrists. And you're just getting used to the motion of head and feet, same, rather than if I tried to do feet only, a lot of strain in the shoulders, or head obviously, I'll just end up banging my face into the floor, so neither of those are ideal. So from there, one or both, back, hold, and then trying to use the leverage and pressure of the arms, a lot of strength in the shoulders, to lift a moment before you actually drop. As I say, similar to kurmasana, then into a straight-legged action to tuck back, climb up, and then drop back or jump down. That final lift is a lot of push in the arms, core strength, and the ability to pivot over the shoulders and hips. So a little bit of, not much, but a little bit of flexibility involved as well.
Is there an exercise that people could do to build that strength? Say they can get their back, a lot of people can get back into the bakasana, but it's that bit, okay, to get off of their arms and get some height. Is there a good
If I had
exercise?
blocks, I would show this on blocks. The main one is, can you do this?
Yeah.
If you can't get off the floor there, lifting in the next part will not be possible, but not that I've ever seen.
And should the legs be crossed like that? Or
It's
should they
easier
be,
if they're crossed,
okay,
because one leg is holding the other.
Yeah.
If you did one side though, then you want to do the other, but you can do it parallel. Right? You can also do it flexed.
Yeah.
Right? Any of those to try and keep pulling in. So can you take your whole body weight leaning forward?
And how far forward should the weight be coming, and where should you put your hands when you get ready to lift?
If whatever the knees are, right, so let's say I've come from a vajrasana or a kneeling position, hands roughly beside the knees. As I try and lift, I'm bringing the knees forward a bit versus feet back. So a lot of people try and hop and flap the feet and they're not able to hold. Rather, it's a forward leaning. So the shoulders are definitely past the wrists. They shouldn't be too far past the fingers. So shoulders, let's say, over the fingers or just past, but no further. Otherwise, too much wrist flexion.
So work on that lift, and then try and bring that.
So it would be something like this,
Yeah.
being able to hold that. If you're having to jump to do it, it won't work.
Yeah.
So it has to be a lot of shoulder combined with a lot of core. And if you're missing a piece of either shoulders not strong enough, core not strong enough, or huge legs, big bum, not possible. Or rare.
Yeah.
And so from there being able to hold this either side, and from there being able to lift. Right, so there's a lot of pulling there in from shoulders to core to laterals.
Yeah.
So that's where I feel the end extension in that to get my hips up is through the side of the back. And that's usually the last thing people feel. Mostly it'll be deltoid or wrists.
So work with that, and then as far as the jump back, how are you transitioning your weight?
The benefit of the position from bakasana is you've got the leverage of the arms, but the same action is, can I hold this, and rather than going down, can I go up? So there's a forward lean and a pull up in the hips. That grip here comes one in the arms, so I'm engaging the armpits, into the laterals and squeezing the belly to pull up. So the back is definitely rounded to get some height in that. if I was to flatten my back, I don't even know if I can do it, flatten more, impossible to lift. Whereas rounding the back, that action, to come up. The main risk in it students have is damaging wrists. So if you're not strong enough or the wrists aren't flexible enough, it's a little bit of a risk.
And is there a nice way to get the wrists warmed up? Is there an exercise that people can do that sort of if they know they've got dodgy wrists?
Well, plenty. Just things like this, rocking. This one should be gentle. Variations. Rolling. Figure eights. Lateral kind of movements. Rotation. So any of these to just loosen off the wrist. If you don't have good forward wrist flexion, that is getting into this position and easily still keep the wrist on the floor, so either the wrist comes off or there's a lot of creasing and yellowing around the ulnar, the outer part of the wrist. So for some students, even if they're flexible, the wrist isn't strong. And so if the ulnar is getting a lot of pressure, it can, I've seen too many wrist injuries in Ashtanga for this.
And what about those people that tend to hyperextend their elbows? These sort of ones that tends to pop into your mind when you see them.
Yeah, so you know, a lot of...
Yeah.
I just look for... If with that, in that case I see a student isn't strong in the shoulders, then it's a matter of working on the shoulder strength, and it's common that that happens because the shoulders aren't engaging well enough. So keeping the elbow down so that the shoulder's working effectively, and that can be a number of floor exercises to start. How they're doing chaturanga, how they're doing the jumps, how they're doing downward dog, to try and correct a better elbow and shoulder position so that the bulk of the muscles in their back are engaged rather than mostly the joints. So the unofficial advanced version of jumping out of bhuja, pidasana, kurmasana, etc. Is keeping the legs more straight. You were asking earlier about tittibhasana. So some teachers say parallel, some people are more bum down, feet up. I'm always going halfway with things like this. So I personally say about 45 degrees. So we're looking for hips down, feet up, but not too much, and not horizontal. Horizontal buckles the shoulders too far forward. Vertical pulls the hips collapse too much. And so getting both gets shoulders and hips more balanced. So 45 degrees is best balance for that posture. All right, so something like, you need a high position, knees to the top of the arm. So up.
And are they going to have the easier version in place first? Because sometimes you see people actually come from the tittibhasana and it's a swing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Legs,
it's more of a flick back.
Hardly even in bhakasana.
Yeah, so that's
a lot of momentum.
There's more of a, and that's okay initially if that's what you need. So you're in this kind of position and just poof.
Yeah.
And there's a whip, and that's okay if you can hold that. Over time, you want to slow that down so you're doing it with the breath. The first thing I hear when I see students do that is a breathing going, and it shuts down very quickly, versus inhale 3 seconds, exhale 3 seconds. And if you can't do a 3-second inhale, then ultimately you're not doing it properly. That's most vinyasa.